All right, it is 1. We are ready to go. I'm back for another webinar. Welcome, folks, to the best practices of technical SEO. I am Spencer Bard, the Director of Client Experience, or a Client Experience Specialist, at Keystone Click. And with me today, I'm joined by Erin.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Erin Jordan. I'm an Assistant Account Manager here at Keystone Click. And we're really excited to dive into everything technical SEO.
For sure. And a little bit about Keystone Click before we get started. We are a strategic digital marketing agency based in or located in the 3rd Ward of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I am currently in the office. Erin mans our Texas corporate headquarters over there. We are a full service marketing agency, anything from SEO, pay-per-click, marketing strategy, website design, development, you name it, we're here to do it. But without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Erin to get us started.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's our agenda for this afternoon. First things first, we're going to do a quick recap of what we covered. If you don't know, our whole year is focused on best practices, and we're wrapping up our 2nd quarter related to SEO. So we're going to give you a quick recap of that. Then we're going to get into what exactly is technical SEO. We'll talk a little bit about optimizing your site's technical SEO, as well as touch on a couple other things related to maintaining plugins and modules, your server environment, as well as site accessibility.
Fantastic. So let's cover what we've went over so far in these past 2 episodes, mainly focused on SEO. So the first topic we covered was on-page, the on-page aspects that you can optimize to ensure you're ranking high in Google. So first things first, when it comes to page optimization, is keyword research. You want to know what those keywords or key phrases are that your clients or your target audience are searching for online that you really want to show up for. So when they search for a problem, these are the keywords, key phrases that you want to show up for. So using those keywords within your on-page SEO tactics for your website content, and whether that be permanent content on your homepage, services page, or your recurring content pages like your blog page, ensuring that you're using those from in the body content, your H tags, so on and so forth. Another thing we look at when we talk about on-page SEO is that homepage. We want to optimize that whole experience that they have on the homepage. And to do that, we do a 3-step, what we call a billboard test, because as you know, you only have about a few, 2 or 3 seconds to grab the attention of a site visitor when they're first entering your site. So you want to check off these 3 aspects right away. 1, is it clear what you do? Are your services obvious? Are your products obvious? Is it clear who you help? What credibility do you have? Do you have testimonials on your homepage? Are you accredited in any certain way? You also want to have that on your homepage. And then what do you want the user to do next? We often talk about the user flow. Where is that next click you want them to be taking? Is it to your contact form? Is it to view your services? Is it to view those products? So really making sure that folks know what the next step is to once you do grab their attention. And then last but not least, recurring content can boost your SEO over time. So this will be ensuring that you have an ongoing schedule that you're maintaining, whether it be blogs, case studies, webinars, things of that nature. Any content that you publish on a schedule is really going to boost your site's SEO. So that's kind of what we cover in terms of page optimization. The second topic area that we covered in this mini series is going to be credibility when it comes to not only building that with your target audience, but also how you can build credibility with Google. So when it comes to your audience and Google, you need to showcase your experience, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. People only buy from businesses they know, like, and trust, and the same goes for Google when they decide to rank sites. So making sure that you're showcasing your experience and building that credibility at every stage. One great way to do that is to establish backlinks. So any site linking back to a piece of content or a page on your site, as long as they're credible, are going to improve your domain authority, meaning that Google's going to see that and they're going to increase that trustworthiness and be more likely to rank you higher. Utilizing testimonials and case studies as well. Testimonials and case studies are even better than a word of mouth. It shows that you do have the expertise. You have done this before. So really make sure you use those strategically throughout your website content, as well as how crucial reviews are. So the reviews you have on Google, whether it be on Google My Business, Facebook, things of that nature, are going to make a tremendous impact on your SEO. Last but not least, utilize social sharing. Share your content, social media, add links back to your website. Any other links from your social that come back to your website are going to be great, as well as any influencers who might be able to mention your business, mention a piece of content, so on and so forth. So that is kind of where we left off. So you can kind of see on the graphic over there, we've got the on-page content as well as the off-page SEO. Those are kind of the two topics we covered so far. And today we are really going to take a deep dive into the technical side of things. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it back to Erin to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. One quick thing too, I know we just wanted to give a quick recap of where we're at. If you wanted to see both of those previous webinars, you can sign up for our entire series and get both of those recordings available to you. That being said, we are talking about technical SEO today. And really, what is technical SEO? That's one of the big names thrown around, and it can seem a little daunting, but the bottom line really is that technical SEO involves the process of improving all the technical aspects of your website in an effort to increase its pages rankings on search engines like Google, et cetera. And really where, SEO or search engine optimization is a combination of both on-site edits and modifications and improvements over time, and also off-site. And technical is really all focused about your website. Is it secure? We're going to get into that. Ultimately, though, the dream is that you make these improvements and your website, when people are searching for the main keywords related to your business, you're the first result that pops up for them when they type it into Google. So that's really kind of the ultimate end goal. And here's how you get there.
Yep.
So really quick, a couple of things we're going to talk about related to technical SEO, some things to think about. But first, we just wanted to share kind of where you maybe want to start out. That might be a common question. And WooRank is a great place to just run a quick diagnostic on your website. Again, it's everything related to your website, both the development of it, different things like that. It'll give you an overall score, but it also does a great job of explaining exactly what each metric is, why it's important, and give you some tips for improving it. So it's a good place to start. We just like to shout it out in the beginning. It's part of what we use to, in our own audit process for websites. And Spencer just threw it in the chat there for you. Next up, we're talking about the domain name. So obviously your website, let's talk about the domain. One thing that we like to point out is that you don't necessarily own your domain name, you registered that name and you maintain that registration of it. So it's really important if at any point to make sure that you're keeping up to date with your registration when it's time to renew. Oftentimes we've seen in the past where that registration expires and somebody else snatches that domain name up. So it's really important to stay on top of that. Related to that, some other things to consider with your domain, some common questions as far as SEO is concerned. How long have you had it? Have other people had it in the past, and is it something different now? How long have you purchased that registration for it? It can be a really short window or a really long window. We recommend a minimum of 3 years at least. And again, that's just to make sure that it doesn't lapse, as well as, setting a calendar reminder right away to down the line, re-up that registration. And then having all of your 301 redirects set up properly. So making sure that everything's pointing where you want them to in terms of your domain. And then as far as crafting what that domain is, keeping your domain as simple and as short as possible. You know, nobody wants to type in something really, really long in their search bar. So keeping it really short, keeping it not complicated, don't have any hyphens or anything. Oftentimes it's going to be your business name. That's the easiest to do. There are times where you may want to register domain name variants, like if you're, keystoneclick.com or, keystoneclicks.com, people will fat finger some things. So bigger companies often will register a couple of variants just to be able to protect that and not have it go somewhere else.
Definitely. And one quick thing about the 301 redirects and just why they are so important when it comes to your SEO from a technical side is, let's say you launch a new site and someone has your previous version of your site bookmarked. So if they click that bookmark and you don't have a 301 redirect, that will take them to an error page, which will essentially hurt your SEO. What a 301 redirect it'll redirect them to the corresponding page in the new site to ensure that, one, your SEO doesn't get damaged, and two, people don't lose their place on your site. So that's just a quick little tidbit about that. Pass it back.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into site security too. So it's definitely important, and it's become more and more important over the years that your site has an SSL certificate attached to it. And what that means in layman's terms is, rather than going to http.website.com, it's that difference between HTTP and HTTPS. So all that means is that your website has an extra layer of security, and that is something that actually Google takes into more consideration now. It's not just for, a payment page on an e-commerce website, it's your site as a whole. But it has actually, Google's said in the past that if all other factors are equal between two websites, the one that has a SSL certificate and goes to HTTPS actually can be a tiebreaker in SEO results. So it'll rank a little bit higher than that one that isn't considered secure. So, and as Spencer was saying, with the 301 redirects, anything that you had from a non-secure domain should point to a secure domain. And not only is that secure for each of your users, but it's deemed better in the eyes of Google and other search engines. Next up, and this is where some of more of the meat comes in when we're talking about technical SEO, both crawlability and indexability. So I've got some definitions for you here. Crawlability describes any search engine's ability to access and crawl content on a page. And all that means is, there are some automated processes, robots, bots essentially scanning your website, scanning how each page links to each other. Essentially, if it's easy for those bots to crawl your site, the better it's deemed in the eyes of Google to be able to say, well, here's each page, the user flow works. I can find all of these pages and therefore put it on search engines. And that's kind of where indexability comes in. So that refers more to the search engine's ability to analyze what a page is about and add it into those search results. So those are two kind of key terms to know, but what that means for you in terms of updating and maintaining your website is, how do you make it easier for those robots to crawl and index? And really, there's a couple of top tips here. Spencer's also thrown in a link to an SEO checklist from SEMrush. That's really good to take a look at, but things like submitting your sitemap, so that, again, robots can easily navigate through your menu and how each page is set up and how users find it, but also improving your internal links, improving how you link from one page to the next, and continuing to update and add new content. That's really important too from a number of different standpoints, but technical SEO included.
So pass it back off to me. Some other components of an SEO friendly site. Number one, your website needs to be mobile friendly. About 50% of traffic that comes to your website will be through a mobile device, whether it be through a cell phone or a tablet, things of that nature. The other 50% are desktop. So actually in 2019, Google officially switched to mobile first indexing for all sites. So you really want to make sure that your mobile experience isn't any different than your website or your desktop experience. So essentially what that looks like is making it easy for users to complete objectives and common tasks. You want to ensure that all images are rendered properly, both on desktop and mobile. It's important that your links aren't too close to each other. You know, if someone's using a phone, they don't want to click on a link when they meant to click on a different link. So making sure that anything clickable on your mobile version are a proper distance away from each other. That's no one clicks on the wrong link is another crucial aspect, because who wants to click on the wrong link? Last but not least, you really need to make sure that your font size is big enough to still be legible. If your font size is too small, if you have people squinting at your mobile site, that's not ideal. No one's going to go on your mobile site like, I don't like the way this looks. I'm going to go on your desktop and I'm going to use the desktop version instead. No, they're just going to exit out and find a different site. So make sure that your site is mobile friendly. Really pay close attention to that. Also ensure that you're using your H tags and meta descriptions across all pages. So that's in the H tags are going to be in the body content. So those will usually be your headlines. It's crucial that when you're in the back of your website, actually entering in the body content, that you highlight the area that you want to be your header 2 or header 1 and making it that, as opposed to just making the font size bigger. Because that, if you just make the font size bigger, Google will just read that as body text, as paragraph, normal text. If you make sure you highlight your headlines, make them H tags, Google's going to pay extra attention to what each of those paragraphs or what the page is about. And that is what they're going to rank your site mainly upon. In terms of meta descriptions, just ensuring that the description of your page from an indexability standpoint showcases what the page is about, uses your keywords. So ensuring that those two aspects are there are really going to help Google index and crawl your site with ease, therefore ranking your site higher. Another real way to ensure that you are technically optimizing your site is going to be auditing your toxic or broken links. So broken links are going to just be links that go to non-existent web pages that bring up errors. So that, once again, that's going to hurt your site's credibility, your authoritativeness with that search engine. It's going to make your site more difficult to crawl. It's going to hurt your sitemap. So really ensuring that you audit your broken links, delete them, make sure that all your internal links are going to the right page, so on and so forth. There are going to be some more key components of an SEO friendly site, more on the technical side. Another massive aspect of technical SEO is actually your site speed. So I'm going to throw in the link to the page speed test that we used for this, but this is really an important way to gauge how well your site is performing from a technical aspect. So Google actually showcased or said in 2021 that user experience is going to become even more important, or page experience, is going to become an increasingly important factor with how they rank pages, and that site speed makes up an incredibly important piece of that page experience. So you really want to make sure that your site's loading quickly and acknowledge that people are looking for that site speed to work properly. And what this website speed test is going to do, it's going to give you two rankings, one for the desktop version of your site, two for any mobile versions. So it's going to give you a few different grades in terms of how long it took your site to be interactive, how long it took to load, how long it took the whole layout to appear. Then it's also going to give you some opportunities or areas to improve. So in this case down there, it's got properly sized images. So really ensuring that your image sizes aren't massive. If you're uploading massive images, it can really hurt your site's speed. So if you're using PNGs or JPEGs, some higher level of formats that can be used are WebP and AVIF formats. Those compress a bit better, but really just ensuring that you're compressing your images as well. So take a look at your site speed, see what's performing well, see what simple aspects you can improve upon to really ensure that you're within that 90 to 100 area. And that'll really benefit your technical SEO. Moving on, and this might not seem like it relates, folks, but I promise it does. So think about this. How often do you update your phone and computer? Think about that for a second. So for most people, Erin, what would you say? I should ask you about this. How often would you say this happens?
Yeah, it really depends. I mean, I've got my auto updates on for my phone. So as long as I plug it in and it says there's a new update available, and I leave it overnight, then it updates automatically. And then I try to update my computer, probably not as often as every iteration of an update, but essentially when there's a big error and trying to have something working properly.
So the reason why I said this is because I have a story about my phone. This guy right here. And I promise we'll get back to it. So if you can look closely to the image, you might notice that my phone is a bit out of date. iOS 13.7, and I need to be on iOS 15.5. I've known this for a while, but I neglected updates for too long that now, even if I clear enough storage, try to install the update, it won't work. And you might notice on the third picture that this has caused these little cloud icons to appear next to some of my apps. And essentially what that means is I can no longer use those apps. So that is a sad story about my phone. And here's where we turn it around, and here's for websites. Your site is just like a phone. Your modules and things that make up your site need to be updated, or else things will break. They won't function as properly as they should. So just like any piece of technology, your site needs to be updated, and updating the plugins and modules on a consistent basis is going to be crucial in ensuring that, one, everything is functioning properly, two, that you're staying up to date with browsers. So Google, Firefox, any browser, they update all the time. So updating your plugins, your site modules, your themes on your site, the version of whatever CMS, whether it be Drupal, WordPress, so on and so forth, update, ensure that those are staying up to date, are going to be crucial to avoiding any errors that can lead to lower rankings on search engines, and ensuring that your site stays up to date with the browsers that are ranking them. So let's get into some best practices for actually maintaining those plugins. So our recommendation is to just head into the back end of your site. I know I got a quick picture on the back end of a WordPress site just to show you what some of those updates look like. But going into the back end of your site every 1 or 2 weeks at the very least to check in to see if there are any updates to any modules or plugins. So if you do go to the back end of your website and you've got more than 3 updates, we recommend doing a maximum of 3 at once just to minimize the error. If you overload the amount of updates or try to make too many big updates at once, it can increase the odds of error, which can cause to some massive errors on your site. But that is why this third bullet comes into handy. So ensure that you add a site backup, or I should say the fourth. Before even going to do this, make sure you have a site backup ready to upload in the event that anything does break on the site. And then before you upgrade your CMS, so that's what I mentioned before, WordPress, Drupal, before you update the version of that CMS, ensure that all of your updates to any plugins have been updated beforehand. because the compatibility for the plugins will work better with the newest version of whatever CMS you're using. If you do handle your own updates, it will really make sure, and I mentioned this before, create a site backup before installing any of those plugin updates or CMS updates. Just in the event that there is an error, you can reinstall the backup and just retry to do those updates. It really just mitigates any error that could be caused. And the last point is that a lot of times on sites, there might be plugins that aren't being used. See this all the time. Someone might be using 3 different versions of forms when they're only using 1. Those just carry dead weight on your site. So if you aren't using any plugins, themes, modules that really aren't of use to you, that aren't anywhere on your site, take them off your site. They can always be reinstalled so that you're not carrying any dead weight.
And for example, like that affects your site speed. So that can be an area too that you may want to improve upon. Ultimately, like some of these things may not seem like they're SEO related, but again, technical SEO is all about having a really healthy site that you're maintaining on a regular basis. And these things over time can impact other things that do ultimately hinder or help you improve your rankings in search engines.
Yeah, that's really a point, Erin. All about keeping the site nice and healthy. Moving on to another little aspect of your site's health, which is going to be your server environment. So where your website is living. So essentially what a website server is it's a computer system that is capable of delivering your content or web content across the internet to the end user via browsers. So when users are going to type a domain name into their web browser, their computer connects to a server that your website's on, and that will deliver that content to them. So there are 2 aspects of this. It's physical storage. So that's all of your website's data that's stored on the physical web server to ensure that it's safe, it's secure, and so that once the user enters in the URL of your website or searches for it using a keyword, that request is generated and sent to the web server to process that data. And then there's the web browser itself, which is going to be Chrome, Internet Explorer, Firefox. So that's the job of them is to find where your website data is located. And once it finds your server, it processes that request. So ensuring that your server environment's healthy ensures that those website browsers are able to find your website data with ease, and that nothing is unhealthy, and that process is functioning properly and quickly. So getting into a bit more about it is virtual hosting. So we've got your virtual private server versus your shared hosting. So essentially what shared hosting is you've got one server connecting to multiple sites. So it works in that there are one server is hosting multiple websites, and what some of the benefits associated with this are the cost. It's going to be a low cost, and we like to use the example that this is like a hostel. You'll have multiple people coming in to use it. It's public, so anyone can throw their website on it. So anyone coming in, out, so on and so forth, that kind of flow is happening constantly. But that does bring upon the potential for increased site security, because you don't know what kind of toxic websites are coming into those shared hosting servers. That's why we actually host using a virtual private server. So this means that your website is hosted on one singular server dedicated exclusively to your website. This will cut out the competition of resources. Everything is dedicated to you. And this, we like to use the analogy of an apartment building. So there are going to be multiple websites in there, but it's privatized. One server is dedicated to your website specifically. And before any server or any website is taken on to that server, it's going to be vetted. It's going to be audited to ensure that it's a healthy site and that it's not going to harm any of the other sites on the server. So The only downside to that is it's going to cost more money. As any great thing in life, it's going to cost more than the cheaper version. So that's kind of the example. Those are kind of trade-offs between the two. Moving on to why web hosting is crucial. So what a website host does is it provides a secure and stable server environment. So in our case, that'd be that virtual private server. We're providing that really safe environment where site data can be stored, where it's not going to be harmed by other websites. Essentially, it's going to be able to fight off online attacks, hacks, and other things of that nature. It's going to keep everything safe. Increase site speed. I know Aaron had mentioned this earlier. It's going to ensure that your site's functioning properly. A lot of them are going to be maintaining those updates, things of that nature for you, which is going to improve your site speed. It helps browsers identify you exist. So if you're on a strong server, it's going to make that connection with that browser quicker and allow for more of those processes to take place in a quicker manner. So it establishes that credibility. We'll throw back to the last webinar. Last but not least is going to be maintaining site updates and customer service. A great hosting partner is going to provide you with those site updates. It's going to keep in touch with you with any customer service, anything you might need. But that's just one hallmark of a great website hosting partner. Moving on to Aaron.
Yeah, so really quick, as I mentioned at the start, we did want to talk about site accessibility. There are some rumors going around now that new regulations may be coming into effect, but it is important from a user experience and also just making sure that your site is accessible and ADA compliant. And so there's a lot of, not a lot of, but there are rules and recommendations related to how a website should be set up and maintained, and several technical tools that can help you make sure that your site is accessible. I quickly wanted to talk through a couple areas of focus related to site accessibility, just so you can kind of be aware of some of these aspects. So number one, is it perceivable? So ability for users to find and process information on a website. As an example,
About that.
hang on, that's okay. As an example, this would be, providing audio descriptions for video content, things of that nature, using alt tags effectively. Alt tags are something that we talk about from an SEO standpoint, but also it's just important from a readability standpoint for those that use site readers and other things like that. So, or visual aids, visual tools. Operable issues, that second one on the list, is someone's ability to navigate and use the website. So ensuring that your navigation is user-friendly and can be operated from just keyboard commands only. That can be helpful. Whether your site is understandable or not. So this is, again, kind of your ability to discern and comprehend all information and navigation on the website. The example I have for you here is, do you have clear error messages? First of all, try to make sure that you don't have any error messages pop up, but when they do, there's a way to craft them in a way that clearly explains the error and what they're encountering. And you've got a clear explanation should anyone encounter it or part of your site breaks in that moment before you have a chance to update it. Finally, robust issues, and this is where the money is, your website's ability to adapt and evolve to meet the changing needs of users. And this is more where as you continue to upgrade your site, that your site has the capabilities needed for it to work with all accessibility related tools. And so I have this just glass of water here because those four create the acronym POUR. So it's an easy to remember pneumatic for you to think about site accessibility.
I like that one, Erin.
Yeah. So we've got a quick summary for you here. Again, just kind of things that we've talked about. So, what technical SEO involves, some of the key points that we mentioned related to, again, your domain name, your site security, your crawlability, indexability, your site speed, and some of the factors that go into that, whether it be making sure that you schedule kind of a process for you to update and maintain your website plugins and modules on a regular basis, that you're choosing a server environment that protects your site and its health long term, and then that you prioritize the accessibility of your website, again, with that acronym of POUR.
For sure. Now that this is the last sort of webinar in our SEO focused episodes of our 2022 best practice webinar series, we wanted to offer a bit of a freebie to you guys for sitting with us. We wanted to offer a free audit of your website, super high level on all three of these aspects we've sort of covered so far. So on-page SEO, let's look at the keywords you're ranking for currently. Take a quick analysis of your content. Are you using those keywords properly? And then take a look at what keywords could you be ranking for and what keywords should you be ranking for. So taking a quick look at that in terms of on-page, off-page SEO, we're going to be looking at the credibility of your site. How are your backlinks doing? How many backlinks do you have? What about your Google My Business page? Do you have reviews there? Does it have the proper information? And a quick look at your social media optimization in terms of, do they have links to your site? Are you posting? So a little bit on the credibility side there. And last but not least, a high level audit of your site's technical SEOs. So mobile friendliness, site speed audit, and a overall technical audit. So with that, I'm going to throw a link in the chat. And if you are interested, just feel free to schedule a meeting with me and throw in that this is what you're looking for, that site audits, as well as the link to your site, because it'd be quite difficult to do a site audit for your site if I don't know the site. But yeah, definitely something that might be interesting to take a look at, and a freebie we really wanted to offer you guys for tuning in for these past 3 episodes as we move into a different series, which will be the Q3 best practice of website series. So we're gonna have 3 episodes focused specifically on websites and how you can best optimize that. Then what's coming up next, I'll let Erin talk about this a bit as we lead into our strategic storytelling workshop.
Yeah, absolutely. And then real quick, just a heads up, you can stay on and we'll answer questions for a couple of minutes. So, but really quick, we did want to talk about our strategic storytelling workshop that we're actually hosting in person at Keystone Click HQ on July 15th. And Spencer's thrown in a link where there's more details, but essentially your message here is that, facts tell, but stories really sell and can help create new business opportunities for you. So our workshop's really focused on crafting and honing your messaging as a business, and really how you can take that into all aspects of your content and your elevator pitches, things like that. So a couple of things here, really helping you to create a value proposition that connects and engages your audience, a storyline and storytelling components that express your unique value proposition. Why should they choose you and your business? And then come up with some elevator pitches that tell your story and drive new business. So it's a hands-on workshop. We'll have a virtual option too if you need that, but really, come in, brainstorm, and get some clear messaging for your business that can work in a variety of different ways. So, we hope you join us for that. But as of now, we'll go ahead and take some questions if you've got any at this time.
For sure. And see, we've got 1 or 2 in the chat, so we'll go ahead and answer those. But if any questions do come up, after the fact, feel free to shoot us an email, spencer.bard@keystoneclick.com or aaron.jordan@keystoneclick.com. But without further ado, we'll get into. So question one, where to start, Aaron? Where can people start with technical SEO?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good idea, as I said in the beginning, to just run a diagnostic or come to us and have a free SEO audit. See where your website stands right now. See if there are any, major errors that have been flagged that are easy ways for you to improve your website, or see what some of those suggestions are really to take your website to the next level, to the best standing it could be in. And then I really think from there, it's about what Spencer really touched upon, and that is kind of the ongoing maintenance of your website, keeping it in good standing and using all of the tools, technical tools available to you that really help your site get recognized, be easily navigable, not just from a user standpoint, but also from a more automated robot standpoint that really is, fed into search engine results.
Yep. Another question that we got is any examples of other render blocking resources besides too big of images? Really, that could come down to excessive code or dead code on the site. And it really comes down to building your site the right way, right away at the end of the day. If your site's built with way too much code or way too much colors, things like that, it could cause that delay, but really ensuring that you're using minimal code.
Yeah, absolutely. We got one other question, and Spencer, you might be the best to answer this. Are like the updates that we were talking about built into the hosting agreement that I currently have?
Yeah. So for most hosting agreements, it really comes down, you want to go back to the contract you signed, see exactly what's offered. And for us, this is going to be a little self-promotion, but try not to get too up in our heads. But we do maintain the plugins and updates, security updates of our sites. But for most hosts, the case will be that they will maintain the aspects of your site needed to ensure that's functioning properly. But it is always great, and that they will own kind of that stuff on the back end, but it's still your job to maintain your site's content, things of that nature. And it's never a bad idea to check the back end of your site just to ensure that everything's updated. And that'll help you know, is my host doing their job properly, if that is included in it. And two, it'll be great practice for learning where your website's living currently, creating those backups, updating those plugins. Just a really good way. So really just look through your contract with your current hosting provider and get down to the nitty gritty of what they offer. But that's kind of my answer to that question.
Yeah, perfect. Like Spencer said, if you have any other questions that come up later, please don't hesitate to reach out. We did record this episode, so it will be available to you to go back and refer to moving forward as you go forth and update your website for SEO.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody.